One of the things I love most in developing a story is the world building. How it could be fantastical, mystical, sci-fi, whatever the case be. It's something that where we feel a connection to. We almost know what we're looking at, but it is slightly different. Sort of like the dog who feels like a cat, acts like a cat, meow meow meow. You know what I'm saying? Or the three-legged chicken. But my point is, there are times when we do not have the ability to figure out our world. It feels generic, or we don't know where to start, what to do. And that is why this exercise is going to help you enrich your story. Because see, the thing is, sometimes they need a prompt, and these prompts are very powerful. And that's what I'm going to go through. But Thomas, what is world building? Honestly, I'd have to say it's the process of creating a setting, the process of developing your cultures, the process of including geography, but also it's the societies, it's the histories, it's the languages, it's the economy, and it's everything from the small day-to-day details that make a world feel lived in to the grandioseness of it all. And you're like, what? Yeah, well, listen, economy. Maybe your world doesn't have money. Maybe it does. Maybe they don't use coins, they use rublets. Maybe they use booths. Whatever the case may be, that is world building. You can literally make it what it is. A replicator in Star Trek is world building. Okay. Now, whether you're writing a sprawling epic fantasy or a tightly knit sci fi, but it is also a thriller. Who did that? Good world building provides the backdrop against which your characters move, interact, and grow. And the more intricate world you have created, the more unique it becomes to your existence. And that doesn't mean you have to put all of your eggs into a basket, okay? No. You could start off small and let it unfold into a uniquely your world. Now, the goal of world building is to make your universe feel real. Very important. Real. Real is that it becomes a part of its movement. And to make it so that your readers can immerse themselves into the environment you have created. The more lived in, we'll talk about that, and consistent your world feels, the easier it is for your audience to invest in the story you're telling. This lesson is mostly designed to help you explore the exercises that help prompt creativity. So let's start off with how to build your world exercises and promptonios. Promptonios. All right. Let's talk about the small details. All right. One of the best ways to bring depth to your world is to start with the small, specific details that are almost inconsequential, the things we don't necessarily notice in our everyday life. But to readers coming to your world for the first time, they're like, oh, that was different. So instead of thinking of an entire world at once, try zooming into one aspect. For example, the market square in your main city, a single festival celebrated by a particular village, or the daily meal rituals of a family in your world. All right. So you want to think of details like clothing styles, types of food being sold, or the kind of gossip a town might be exchanging. Details. Let's try something, shall we? Shall we? For example, the world is a vampire. It's a vampire. All right. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take that example and we're going to work on it. Okay. So, let's see what we got. Do, 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 do. All right. Props and stuff like that. So, clothing. All right. So, let's just write down the examples: clothing, foods, sounds, right? Maybe let's see. I am gonna do the market square though. We're gonna do a market square. Okay. So if let's say we start off with a very specific and almost generic market. Okay. David Duss. David Duss. I don't know. David Duss. All right, because it's fantasy. Let's make up a silly name. David Duss. So David Duss, and by the way, we're gonna just This is as if we're writing a zero draft and then we're going to build on it. Okay. So the first embodiment is going to be pretty like, okay. David Duss walked through the market square, searching for the right fruits needed for dinner. He approached the first place on his list, purchasing. Let's see. Spices, and helpful extras for a dish best made cold. All right. So, as an example, this doesn't really say a lot, but there are so many opportunities for world building. For example, let's see. Children played in the corner square of the market, cheering, tossing a votum ball uh, at one another, and chasing chasing each other around the park. All right, so now we know what a corner square is, the park, and we know that they're tossing a bottom ball. We don't have to explain that. Remember, you don't always have to explain your world building, especially if it's just a part of the descriptive narrative. And the reason is because that's what helps it feel lived in. Is that it is not narratively important. It is just helpful to bring life to your world. All right, and then this brings us to Davis. All right, the ball flew past Davis. Davis. As he moved out of the way, children running by. Okay. He entered the main market square, right? Of Hollandu. Okay. Hollandu. All right. So now searching for the right garbus fruits needed for dinner. All right. So right off the bat, we have added some context to. We've created a lively scene, right? With the market, we're creating some movement. The children are out playing. They're playing with the votum ball, tossing it at one another and chasing each other around the park. The ball flew past. So we're using the logical narrative movement to allow the children's to influence what the main narrative. The ball flew past David Duss. That's a made up now. I'm just being silly with that. David Duss as he moved out of the way of children running by. But you could just say blew past David as he moved out of the way of children running. Okay. Running out of the park. So I could actually do this, chasing each other. Okay, there you go. He entered the main market square of Hollandu. So now we know the location. Searching for the right garbus fruits needed for dinner. Okay. So instead of saying he approached, he could just get right to it. Born of the eve. Sander of Holland. He said, bowing his head. Okay. bowing his head as he entered the shop. All right. So what did we do here? Morn of the eve. That becomes obviously I'm trying to play a little bit with ideas and going a little extreme to show you that you can pretty much do anything you want, obviously. But I'm showing movement of the culture, right? So morn of the eve. So instead of saying good morning, morn of the eve, Sander of Halden. So, it's a way they approach each other and talk, bowing his head. So that's showing, but without explaining it. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And you. All right. Families. Dinner again. All right. The shopkeep bowed bowed in return. The family's coming again. All right. Right, and then you could start adding some like plot to it. More like the in-laws first visit to Hollandu. He said, shop keep to a few bagged spices here. Dress. All right, Dries and Sidon should do the trick. Add this to any fruit dish, and it'll bring out the flavor. All right. So now, get rid of that. Okay. So what had happened here is basically we're allowing the interaction to not only move the plot forward, but we are building the world. We are letting the world come alive. We're showing elements of the world building naturally. And this is the thing. When you're doing world building, the less you explain it, the more you can explore it. And what does that mean? It means that, all right, in reality, this Dries and Sidon, right? When we get to the actual dinner scene, if I was writing the book, okay, if we get to the dinner scene, what we can do is now explain the taste of those spices as they bite down on the fruits. And obviously we could go into the fruit dish, right? Add this to any fruit dish. Also, we're building that maybe they are a vegetarian community, so we're building on that too. All right, and that's one of the secrets to world building is you want to. Okay, I don't take up the screen. Okay, you want to allow your world building to be integrated naturally. You want it to not have to be bogged down with exposition. That doesn't mean you can't give the exposition. He entered the main market square of Holland, a place filled with good-natured souls and plenty of high-quality foods known for trade. Then you could say, entering the season, searching. You could even go. He entered the main market square of Holland, a place filled with good-natured souls, and plenty of high quality foods known for trade. As he searched for the right garbus fruits needed for dinner. All right, you can do that. I'm not really a big fan of doing that per se, but I see it in a lot of books where they'll just kind of sort of explain something and they'll go off and it's like for example, if you said the Dre cider and scene, this might turn into let's see hmm, uh Dre's mixed with Seeding had become a tradition among the Hollandites, whatever. The Hollandites, a combination that elevated a person's taste buds and brought fruit to its sweetest potential. Okay, you can do that. Don't get me wrong. You can. There's nothing wrong with that either. Um, I'm not really a fan. I'm not really a fan of that. But I can't spell. All right. However, what we just did is we turned um a descriptive movement passage where it was like, Davidus walked through the market searching for fruit for dinner tonight. We took that and I basically turned it into a scene. And the scene became alive because I was like, well, how do I move something? So I was like, well, children in the park playing a game will definitely add to the world. And then I named the city because you might as well just do that. And then how are they saying hi to each other? Moan of the eve, Sandra of Holland, right? He said, bowing his head as he entered the shop. This creates culture. This creates, how people communicate. The shopkeep, the shopkeep, the shopkeeper. Is it two or is it one? I forget. I forget. Is it shopkeeper? Oh yeah, it's shopkeeper. Shopkeeper, give me your strongest potion. All right. Okay. Anyway, bowed head. So we know that bowing the head is just there's no status in it. They just do it to one another. It's a sign of courtesy. It's like saying, "Hey, how's it going?" Family's coming to dinner again. That's a nice little character moment where we realize that he knows the shopkeep. This is something they do often. More like the in-laws' first visit to Holland, Hollandu. The shopkeeper said, turning around to a few bagged spices. Here, Driez and Seedon should do. Seedon. Seedon. Should do the trick. Add the standing fruit dish and it'll bring out the flavor. Right. And then of course I'm doing the extra. This is like the stuff I don't normally do, but you can do this. This is not uncommon where they explain something. Drea is mixed with Eden had become a tradition among the Hollandites, a combination that elevated a person's taste buds and brought fruit to its sweetest potential. Like, uh, I don't know if you've ever read Brandon Sanderson because apparently everyone has because it sold so many. But he does that, he'll explain something. He'll just go right into it. R.R. Martin definitely doesn't. So it's okay to do that. All right, moving on. Moving on. Use what if questions. What if, what if, what if you have a question? Do you have a question? Because I have a question. All right. So, what if questions are basically a great way to explore how different elements of your world connect and influence each other. For instance, what if magic were illegal in your world? That's a question. What if, or if it was, how would society adapt and what conflicts would arise? What if the world's seasons lasted for decades instead of months? That's an example with R.R. Martin. Winter and summer. Summers can last a long time, and so can winters. How would this affect the way people live, farm, and travel? Asking these what ifs helps you uncover certain things. So let's go back to we'll do we'll do a quick what if. What if this? What if that? What if the world was a vampire? All right. So, uh, just on the brainstorming factor, what if uh, animals could talk? Huh? What if birds? What if birds were a part of the communication community and controlled the resource of information? Ah. All right. So, what if animals could talk? Well, now that makes it so birds were a part of the communication community, and right. So now they can inform people of certain things, right? What if dogs now were not allowed to be in private conversations? Right. So these what ifs now turn the way we look at just because animals could talk, it would change the behavior of our relationship with animals. Uh, would people be vegan because the animal talk? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm hanging out with a cow and he's like, what are you doing over here, Thomas? I'd be like, not eating burgers. Uh, like my dog, when I had a dog, when he hung out with me, he talked, but it was I gave him a voice. So that means I couldn't eat the dog because the dog talked. And that was just a fake voice. And I'm going, hey dad, Papa, can I get hugs and cuddles? And I'll be like, okay. He's like, oh, I love my daddy. Right. And that's just fake voice. But if you're writing a world where the animals can talk, how does that influence the commerce? How does that influence the daily lives of everybody? So that's an example of taking one little what if, which is indeed a little one if, and then realizing the way it would influence or affect the world. And by the way, you could do whatever you want because it's yours. It doesn't have to be communication. It could be that animals versus humans. It could be whatever. It could be animals develop technology and control commerce. Okay. Animals evolved more than humans. All right. So, whatever. You could literally do whatever you want. All right. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. What's next? What's next? Ooh. All right. So, this is also a very important element of world building, mapping out relationships. Basically, who has the power, who wants the power, what tensions exist, why. You want to draw right out a map of different groups and how they feel about one another. This could be as simple as a web connection. Now, I'm going to go into something very important with this. All right. I know I bring up my book a lot, but that I'm working on. But it's what do they say? Talk about what you know, right? So there's a group called the Von Tarn. There's the Silation Gods, and then there's the Maven soldiers, right? And then of course there's the Naradita, and all these other things. All right. With that said, I did not have their relationships quote unquote mapped out because if you watch my videos, I try to explore the narrative arcs of characters, and then I allow their arc to fill in the blanks. I'll have concepts and ideas, but I won't have them in stone while I'm working out the complete narrative, and I'm allowing each beat of every character to sort of have a need. There's a couple of moments where certain characters evolved from being sort of like a hey, how are you doing, to they had such a deep story that they literally are a part of something bigger now. The same thing with how when I was writing the original book, when I was first mapping out, it was one book. And some characters sort of like came and went, and they was sort of just explored in the sense of that's who they are. But then I broke it up into 3 books, and then I was like, and then I broke it up into more, but and now it's 5 books, right? So uh, this first book gave me a chance to explore Liam Dor as a character, whereas Liam Dor was not really uh, explored on the page, if that makes sense. Just from outlining though, having the chance to sit there and go, I'm going to sit in the first act of the original book, and now the first act becomes its own story, which has a full narrative now. Um, I got to actually explore certain things that was sort of grazed over, where or glazed over, glanced over, where it's just like this thing happened, and remember it was, and everything, and that was the thing. Like everything felt like I was telling, and that's the hardest part. Is like you just want to get to the quote unquote cool parts and the emotional parts, but then you realize, well, telling kind of diminishes a lot of the stuff. So now that which was a conscious effort on mine to say, let me spread out the book a little bit. And now that gave me a chance to build on the Narradita, which were sort of originally only like maybe 5 or 6 chapters of the original novel, and now they're the first act. I explore the Narradita in the first act. I explore Silation more in the second act. And then, well, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the third. So why am I saying this? Because relationships, Liam Dor's relationship got to expand, but so did the Varn Tarn's relationship. The Varn Tarn, I'll be high, is a thieves guild. All right. The Silation gods, I now got to explore their relationship with how they interact with the soldiers, the Maven soldiers who have occupied the land, because Emperor Maven. But the guards of Silation got to remain, and they're sort of like the cops, and they work with the armies, but they're not necessarily a part of the armies. They're sort of like that, it's as if the National Guard came into New York. Like New York would still have the police, right? But then, like, what is the relationship between the Narradita and the city people? And then there's trolls and there's all these other things, right? It was as I discovered the narrative and started digging deeper, I was able to build on these relationships. So when you're tackling relationships, you don't have to sit there and really figure out every single element before you start writing. But as you are writing, as you are developing your outlines, if you're pantsing, whatever you're doing, you have to remember there are relationships between groups. There's relationships between child and parent. There's relationships between parents and their parents, right? There's relationships between community and their citizens. There's relationships between authority and the community. There's relationships between the criminal underground and the people in charge, right? So you have to say to yourself, how do I explore these things? Especially when you're working it out. Show behavior, add elements of, do people have to pay higher ups? Is it a strict law enforcement society? You know, what? And this is the other thing. Like, just because, like, let's say you have guards and you're allowing them to be a part of the narrative and you're exploring them. Some guards are going to be all in. Some will be like, well, this is a job. Others will be like, well, I'm here, so I'm going to do my job, but I'm not going to risk my life for it. Right? Like, there are variations to people and their behaviors to that. But with that said, that means there's variations to the behaviors of many different people within the societal guard and how they interact with other people. So keep that in mind. All right. Woo! Daily routine rituals and customs. So this again comes down to good morn of the eve, right? I have religious people say their hello and goodbye prayers. Uh, Again, this is another thing that while you are working on your story or the narrative, you don't have to overly examine these things. But rituals, customs, and traditions, they are the small elements that make big impacts. The way someone greets somebody is as impactful as a character divulging a vulnerability because it makes it interesting. It's something unique. A character's emotional journey is what makes that character unique, just as your world's uniqueness is based on an introduction. How do I say hello to somebody? How do I say goodbye? Are they religious? Are they not religious? How do people interact with faith? Um, but also customs. How do they work with money? How do they pay things? How do they, whatever the case may be, right? Uh, these are things that when you come up to certain moments, like for example, going back to the market, if you're writing a novel and in that narrative they have to interact with another character, what does that character do? Are they a gatekeeper, literally, like they control the gate? Are they a shopkeeper? Or whatever? Are they somebody at a tavern? Are they a king, a queen? Are they a whatever? You make up a king, a queen, you can make up your own names. Are they authority? Whatever the case may be. Now, how do they interact with each of those? What are the customs? For example, I do this in my book, but um, when you meet like a king, right? You'd say Majesty first, Your Majesty, and then you would say Sire thereafter. So that's a custom. So in your world, it could be anything you want. So if they meet somebody, like let's say they meet like a law enforcement or like the captain of the guard, and the first thing you say to a captain is, you know, Captain Thomas, uh, or vidi vivi, whatever, make up a word, sound vivi vivi, Captain, Thomas, and then they might say, Tatatoche, right, whatever, it's all fake, right? And now but you don't let them say vivivici, whatever, whenever they meet anyone, but they always say it when they first talk to the captain or someone of rank. And then you realize that's slowly building the world, saying every time someone of rank is vidivivici. All right. Okay. All right. I think that was pretty good. It was pretty good. So let's talk about final thoughts. Final thoughts, because that's where we're at. So, world building is going to be a deeply personal and creative endeavor for you, but it does not have to be extraneous. And it can be something that unfolds as needed. But my biggest suggestion to you, my biggest a piece of advice when it comes to world building is whenever you create an interaction, what is the process? That's it. When you and I meet each other in real life, we say hello, how are you? If we kind of know each other and we're finally meeting, we may shake hands. If we have a deeper relationship, we may hug, right? If you're familiar or have a family bond or whatever, we might kiss on the cheek. In Italy, it's right, both sides, whatever the case may be. Every interaction should lead to what is this interaction and how is it implemented? When people eat, what is the behavior? Some people pray beforehand, some people don't. When people go to sleep, some people pray, some people don't. You know what I'm saying? Um, when they make food, who makes the food? How do they serve the food? I'm not saying you have to do this for everything, but everything is a truth. So if you have people eating and let's say, as an example, let's say it's a family and the mother and father cook the food together, and the kids get the table and they set it up around the table, and there's chairs. That has created a cultural behavior. That has created the societal behavior. Now let's look at it a different way. What if it's a community and a group of people, men and women, even kids, are cooking the dinner for the night. And there's a bunch of them, and they all are helping one another, and they're all part of it, and they're all singing. And then they put it together and they make like sort of like a buffet kind of communal thing. And then the person who is in charge goes last, and the person who needs the most goes first. And they go up and they serve. And then they all sit down and they're all surrounded. They're in a community. That becomes world building. Just choosing that is also as world building as the table was set up. And maybe they all sit on the floor, the grass, or maybe whatever the case may be. Every choice you make is world building. So you have to say to yourself, how big of an impact do I want this world building element to stand out? How much do I want to influence change to the way we look at society, especially in my quote unquote world that I'm building? Okay. Marriage is a thing. So if people are they married, or is there different variations of marriage? Just because we have marriage doesn't mean it has to be marriage in your world. It could be something else. Every element you approach, just give it 1 second thought. And if it's something that's interesting to you to explore and say, what can I change about this? Or how do I want to approach it? How do I want to approach greetings? How do I want to approach religion? How do I want to approach community? How do I want to approach dinner? Right? Is there breakfast, lunch, and dinner? In my world, I have a two. I have 2 times people wake up. They wait. They have like a first wake, and then they go to sleep for a little bit more. Then they have a second wake, and then. But the days are long too because I have a 28-hour day, and I worked that out. I worked out my time. I worked out. There's 2 suns, so I worked out the sunrise and fall of each sun. Right. The seasons are important. I have floating isles. That affects things, right? Everything you add could be an exploration of world building. So approach it with an open mind. And remember, it's all fake. You can literally make everything up. Nothing is off the table. And you could go as crazy as you want or as simple as you want. But the truth is, you can do what you want and try things. There's nothing wrong with just saying, let me see what it looks like if they do it this way. Let me see. Do they use bowls, or are they somebody, you know, whatever the case, are they a plate society? Are they a bowl society? Do they eat on massive leaves? Whatever the case may be, you get to explore that. All right. Next video in this series, we building through the experience of narrative and characters. Building through the experience of narrative and characters. So allowing the world to build through the actual experiences of the narrative and the characters. So that should be fun. Question. What is something from your fictional world that is cultural or adds a deep world building element? Something that if somebody reads your book, you feel this would be the thing that really stands out. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know. And of course, if you haven't done so already and you like what you've been watching, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And I guess, as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.